Let's talk about other stuff that we should also be very angry about. The United Nations has warned that an even more hellish scenario is about to unfold in Gaza as Israel orders more evacuations, this as they widen their offensive in the south of the country. Now, joining me right now is Manuel Hassasyan. Hassasyan, apologies. He's the former Palestinian ambassador to the UK. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, sir. Appreciate your time. What do you make of this warning from the United Nations that, you know, the existence for Palestinian civilians in Gaza has already been hellish? More than 1 million forced to move from their homes in the north, now in the south, many without power, adequate food and fresh water supplies, being told no move here, no move there by the Israeli authorities without really any planning and often not even any fuel for their vehicles if they've got one. What do you make of this, the prediction that this is going to become even more hellish for these people?
First, thank you very much, Julia, for inviting me for the second time. Let me start first by updating, with the statistics that we have today. Almost 16,000 Palestinians have been killed, 70% of whom are women and children. 42,000 are being injured. It is a shame to say that we are today witnessing the fundamental principle of humanity being openly disgraced with this incessant and indiscriminate warfare. The South today is not safe. As a matter of fact, all Gaza is not safe. If you recall, during the first period of the war, they were warning the Gazans to move southward. Now they are now trying to intensify their bombardment also in the south under the pretext that they are following to chase Yahya Sinwar, who is the leader of Hamas, with his entourage, with the information that he is being hiding in the south and what have you. These are all pretexts, that justifies the continuous bombardment of Palestinians.
Hold on a minute. Manuel, doesn't the idea that one of the Hamas leaders being, they're trying to target him, I would say that was a rather legitimate target. You say this indiscriminate bombing. It's not indiscriminate bombing. It is an awful, awful tragedy that civilians die in wars. They die in all wars. They died in the Second World War when we bombed, the Germans and they bombed us. That's what happens. But Israel, more than any other country, including, by the way, the British military, carries out more targeted bombing, more warnings in advance to people about where they're going to be bombing, leafleting, text messaging, calling people to say you need to leave this building. The reason why civilians are dying is because Hamas has been using them as human shields. Hamas has chosen to put its command and control and its military sites within schools, mosques, under hospitals, within residential buildings. They've told sometimes in the cases Palestinian civilians not to leave, barring them from leaving. Why are you blaming Israel when Hamas has gone against all of the rules of warfare by putting their military sites and their command centres and in residential areas?
There goes the same argument that you have been putting all the time. This polemic. This is not.
Is it not true? Is it true or is it not true?
Listen, Julia. The question that you have to ask is: are they targeting tunnels where Hamas are found, or they are just targeting buildings indiscriminately under the pretext that they are chasing Hamas leaders? Where is the sense of rationality here?
You're saying that it's not true.
About human
I just want to clarify. You're saying it's simply not true that they're giving those warnings. It's simply not true that Hamas has actually got military sites, underneath, in schools, in mosques. It's not true.
What are these warnings are doing? They are bombing people, whether they're giving them warnings or not. People are moving from one side to another and they are being bombed. In the beginning, they told them to move to Khan Yunis. Now Khan Yunis is being bombarded.
Yeah.
So what is the logic behind giving all these texts?
I agree with you. There's a big concern about people being told to leave the north because they want to take on Hamas in the tunnels, and then people still being bombarded in the south. And absolutely, it's something I've raised with Israeli representatives, IDF representatives throughout this. However, can you just remind me, how many text messages and leaflets were sent out by Hamas ahead of October the 7th, warning the people in the kibbutzes in the southern Israel and the people at the music festival that they were going to be raped, tortured, mutilated, murdered and taken hostage? Can you remind me exactly when those messages went out to warn those people?
You know, the thing is,
No,
everybody is stuck with October 7th, but nobody is talking about
what fixating on a massacre
after the October 7th. You know, the thing is, when resistance try to do something, they don't have to inform their occupiers that they are to do something like resisting or whatever you want to call it.
It's just resistance. Okay. It's not terrorism.
Let us call it whatever you want to call it.
I want to call it terrorism.
I want to call
it butchery.
I call also Israel state terrorism as butchery. You don't have to only side with one side and neglect the other, because the repercussions of what Israel has been doing is 100 times more than what Hamas has done. So don't put both of them on equal footing. Violence is violence, whether from Hamas or what have you.
No, actually,
you cannot talk about the disproportionate
in domestic courts, in criminal courts, and also in international law, your intentions, your motivations matter. Deliberately targeting civilians, specifically civilians, butchering, raping, murdering, taking hostage, is a war crime. Targeting military facilities, warning people, and civilians, innocent civilians getting killed in that is not a war crime. This is the thing. You seem to think that what happened on October the 7th was justified. Correct me if I'm wrong. You seem to think the appearance you're giving is that that was justified because of Israeli occupation, all of the things that Israel's done. But somehow Israel's response isn't justified. So tell me what you are saying then.
No. You see, you make a big mistake when you say 260,000 apartment buildings have been bombarded as military targets. How do you prove in the 260,000 buildings that have been destroyed with church, mosques, and what have you, that there are Hamas terrorists being there? How could Israel justify that? And you don't call that state terrorism. You call what Hamas has done is terrorism.
No, it's war.
Where is the fairness in this? Where is the fairness in this?
No, I don't think any of it's fair. I think it's warfare. Do you believe that Israel has a right to exist?
Israel has the right to exist within the borders of 1967. As Palestinians have accepted the borders of 1967 to be their state, 78% of historic Palestine has been given to them back in 1988 when we have agreed and went into the Oslo Accords.
Right.
So we are talking about only 22% of Palestine.
Okay.
We want to end occupation and have our independent state. There won't be Hamas. There won't be any kind of militias. It's over. We will have our independent state.
The Palestinian Authority leader, who's supposed to be Mr. Moderate, is actually somebody who has talked about the annihilation of Israel and therefore, I don't know where the Israeli people are supposed to go. This reality is that, Hamas has an awful lot of support within Gaza. The Palestinian authorities and the multi-millionaires who are leading these organisations and not living the life that poor people in Gaza actually are forced to live by them. That those people, they are very open. They would at the first opportunity, there would be another massacre of Israelis. They don't believe that Israel has a right to exist, not just within those borders, but the actual, there's no two-state solution. There's a one-state solution, and one state is Palestine, not Israel. And many of them don't believe that Jews have a right to exist. In those circumstances, does Israel not have a right to self-defense?
Let me tell you, you are totally wrong and off track. For 30 years, the Palestinian Authority, represented by the PLO, have accepted the two-state solution. It was shouldered by the international community with the political framework of the Arab Peace Initiative and UN Security Council resolutions 224 and 338. The PLO had stood it to its guns, but the continuous Israeli rejection of the two-state solution by creating new facts on the ground, in building settlements, and in creating hell in the occupied territories, whether the West Bank and the total embargo and blockade of Gaza, has rendered the two-state solution insignificant. But today, Even President Biden, the Europeans are talking about the two-state solution. And the only key towards implementing the two-state solution is the PLO, ma'am. So if Hamas wants to join the PLO in the two-state solution, as they did lately by accepting the fact that there should be, or they're accepting 1967 borders as the independent Palestinian state in prior demand for the total liberation of Palestine, this rhetoric has stopped by Hamas also. So the thing is Israel interested in a peace process?
Okay.
That's a question we should ask.
Can I just ask you just finally, briefly, if you would, sir, what sort of self-defence, given there seems to be a justification that, well, because of all the things Israel's done to the Palestinian people, it's understandable at the very least, not even justifiable for them, Hamas, to carry out this horrific massacre of innocent men, women and children and take hostages. So what do you think is a justifiable level of violence, retribution, self-defence, whatever you want to call it, for Israel to use against Hamas?
You have asked me this question the first time you interviewed me, and I told you the answer to this for Israel is to totally destroy Gaza. That's the way they would catch all Hamas.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
What I think? What I think in what? Self-defense for Israel?
If what you think, if what Israel is doing right now is not justifiable to you, what would be justifiable on their behalf?
I would say to the Israelis, they have failed in accomplishing their objectives. And I think they went beyond what they expected, you know, in the destruction of Gaza. This is the time for Israel to save its face and to stop this heinous crimes against the Palestinians. And if they think they would really try to get Hamas, they are totally wrong, because Hamas is an ideology and it's not only a human being.
So we just leave the ideology, like we, you know, when we had this, when in the West, you know, dealing with Islamic State, dealing with Al Qaeda, you know, people in the West, you know, other countries did not have the view, yeah, you know what, well, we can't destroy the ideology, so carry on as you were. That wasn't the thought process. Why on earth would Israel take that view when Hamas have said, at the first opportunity, we will carry out another October the 7th style massacre and we'll do one every single day until you're all gone? On what basis could any democratically elected government of a state in the Middle East say, that's fine, we'll just live with that?
Let me tell you very briefly.
Okay,
if Israel thinks that they had achieved or accomplished their purpose in bombarding all Gaza, I think they have failed. Okay. And they have failed the second objective of getting Hamas leaders, and they have failed to destroy the tunnels, and they have failed dismally in trying to win the support of the international community that is shifting against her. They are losing in the United Nations, in the world, propaganda and what have you. What is the alternative for Israel? I think you should think smartly to advise them what to do, Julia, instead of putting me on the spot that requires basically to tell you that Hamas is an innocent, militia and what have you. This is not the intention. I mean, Hamas is a small group of Palestinian militias. Israel failed to control them or to destroy them. So they continue destroying the entire Palestinian people under the pretext of self-defense.
Manuel, we'll have to leave it there. I really appreciate you joining us. Manouel Hassassian, he is the former Palestinian ambassador to the UK.